She took a stranger to her ex's wedding, but what God did after left everyone speechless. Tonight, you'll see how God can turn a scene of humiliation into a stage of grace. Stay until the end, because there's a detail at the altar no one saw coming. If you've ever been exposed in public, this story will help you breathe again. Type Amen if you believe God still writes plot twists. Take a deep breath and imagine bells, white flowers, and a trembling heart. Ready to watch God rewrite destinies in real time? Then press play and don't blink. Grace stared at the wedding invitation like someone facing a verdict. Her ex's name shimmered in gold script, a wound that hadn't healed. Bring a guest, it said, as if life were that simple. She smiled faintly, a smile that was almost a prayer. Lord, please don't let me be humiliated again. Outside, the city rushed by, unaware of the earthquake inside her chest. Inside, her soul begged heaven for a miracle. On social media, friends suggested elegant revenge, a stunning dress. Grace wanted something deeper than social approval. She wanted not to shake when she heard the wedding march. She wanted her heart to stay standing under curious eyes. She wanted God to be more real than her pain. And for a moment, she felt heaven listening. Maybe the guest she needed was courage. But courage can falter when the past smiles back. In the corner cafe, steam from coffee traced clouds of comfort. That's where she saw Nathan, leaning by the window, worn jacket, tired eyes. He didn't ask for anything, yet his soul seemed to be pleading for peace. "Do you need help with something?" she asked, without planning to. "Maybe with the kind of things words can't fix," he replied softly. The kind of answer that lingers longer than silence. Their conversation began gently, stumbling over small talk. Grace spoke about her work at the community shelter and simple recipes. Nathan listened like someone gathering stars from dark nights. "I know about loss too," he admitted, without drama. "And I know how it feels to walk into a room that once said you weren't enough." That sentence landed in Grace's heart like an old prayer coming home. Something in them recognized something in God. "I have a complicated invitation today," Grace confessed suddenly. "My ex is getting married, and I need to face it without falling apart." Nathan didn't laugh, judge, or offer cliches. He just held the moment steady like someone holding a bridge. Sometimes God sends company before he sends the miracle. And sometimes that company is the miracle happening. For the first time that day, Grace's hand stopped trembling. "I should take someone," she whispered, surprised by her own voice. "But it feels strange to ask a stranger." Nathan breathed slowly, eyes honest and unhurried. "Strangers become friends around the right fire. And God has taken me to unlikely places to heal deep wounds." Grace realized the real invitation was to her own heart, and the yes had to be given to God first. The clock moved fast, ribbons, flowers, and a modest dress. She wore dignity like armor. "Lord, guide my steps among those who want to show," she prayed. The mirror reflected someone a little stronger than yesterday. In her pocket, a scribbled verse, "I will not be put to shame." She grabbed her purse as if taking her father's hand and walked into the unknown. Nathan was waiting outside the old stone church. There was no luxury about him, just presence. He offered his arm, not as possession, but protection. "Ready not to run?" he asked. Grace nodded, swallowing a storm of memories. The bells began to call the city to witness promises. The ground felt thin, but faith carried weight. The entrance buzzed with whispers sharp as arrows. Eyes tracked Grace like polished blades. She brought someone. Who is he? An actor, maybe. Nathan stayed calm, a quiet anchor in a noisy sea. "Look at me, not them. And more than me, look at God." Grace found secret ground under her feet. Warm lights, perfect tables, a corridor of expectations. A quartet played something too sweet for a bitter day. Her ex stood at the altar, flawless smile rehearsed. The bride glittered with victory in her steps. Grace felt the old question rise. What if I had been enough? "You are," whispered a voice not from Nathan. Sometimes God's glory fits inside a whisper. When they sat, the host asked for memories and stories. If anyone would like to say a few words. Grace froze, her past calling her name again. Nathan placed his hand gently on the table. We don't need to speak to prove we've healed, but sometimes healing means speaking right at the right time. Grace breathed and let the moment pass. A bridesmaid stood up, laughing, retelling old romantic memories. The crowd loved it, laughter dripping with sweet poison. Some loves just aren't meant to last, she concluded. The phrase searched for Grace like a blade looking for skin. She closed her eyes, remembering the shelter and those who stayed. Lord, give me a different kind of answer, she prayed. Something in the air shifted. A waiter tripped on a cable, almost chaos. The band hit a wrong chord, lights flickered. Small disruptions rippled through the celebration. Nathan noticed first. He stood and moved quietly. He fixed the cable, calmed the crew, untangled the mess. No spotlight, no applause, just service. And service is heaven's favorite language. Who is that guy? Someone whispered. Grace's friend, I think. He's fixing everything. Meanwhile, a young waiter trembling under the weight of trays, Nathan guided him to safety, avoiding disaster. Tiny rescues, silent kindness, no one clapping, but peace began to spread like perfume. The bride noticed, the planner noticed, the room breathed again. Music returned in tune, light steadied. The host laughed. We've got a secret hero among us. This time laughter was genuine, tension melted. Grace watched Nathan serving quietly and understood something new. Maybe God didn't bring someone to help me win the crowd. Maybe he brought someone so we could win over shame together. Her ex noticed him from the stage. Surprise, then discomfort, then something like respect. He stepped down, shook Nathan's hand briefly, then looked at Grace, guilt mixing with relief. There was more story between them than vows could tell, and God was already writing between the lines. Grace looked away, tears threatening but heart steady. Thank you for coming, the bride told her later. There was no irony, just humanity. I know it wasn't easy. Grace held back tears that, for once, weren't from pain. I didn't come to prove anything, she said softly. I came to stand before God. The bride nodded, learning something too. The photographer gathered everyone in the garden. Bells echoed, light cracked through the clouds. As the lens focused, a soft wind lifted the veils. A single petal landed on Grace's hand like a seal. Nathan looked at her with calm certainty. This is just the beginning, and God's beginnings often look small. Back at the tables, the host made an announcement. We'll open a moment of gratitude. Anyone may share. Silence hung heavy, chairs reluctant to move. Nathan stood, not looking at anyone in particular. I'm thankful for places where grace can work, and for invitations that lead us to where healing finds us. The room held its breath, though no one knew why. He didn't mention names, didn't reveal stories. He spoke of forgiveness like someone who knew both price and prize. He spoke of new beginnings without applause, just presence, and of a God who kneels to rebuild what pride destroyed. When he sat, the air felt lighter. Some hands clapped quietly, some hearts did too. Grace felt different eyes on her now, less judgment, more wonder. Not because she won, but because God had taken over the stage. Her ex seemed smaller than the role he once played. The bride looked more like a bride, less like a rival. And Grace looked like a daughter, not an exile. She smiled, to Nathan, to heaven, and heaven smiled back. Before dinner, the planner approached her. There's a toast coming up. Would you like to say something short? Her entire past trembled like glass. Nathan met her eyes. If God asks, go. She whispered the oldest prayer. Here I am. She walked towards the microphone as if crossing a sea, and the story decided to turn.
The microphone waited like a dare. Glasses chimed, candles flickered, and the room held its breath. Grace's knees felt weak, but something deeper stood taller inside her. She had walked through shame before. Tonight, she would walk through grace. Nathan's steady gaze anchored her from across the table. Every hum in the air seemed to whisper, "Now speak what you once swallowed." She gripped the stem of her glass and began. "Life doesn't always give us endings we expect," she said quietly. Heads turned, forks paused midair. Sometimes it gives us endings that break us, so we can finally start again. Her voice didn't tremble, it testified. "I came here tonight not to prove I'm fine, but to thank God I'm still standing." Soft murmurs rippled through the guests. Nathan bowed his head, silently praying for her strength to keep flowing. Grace continued, each word weaving peace into tension. "I once thought love was about being chosen, but God taught me it's about choosing, to forgive, to release, to heal." Her ex's mother covered her mouth, moved by the tone rather than the words. "And if I've learned anything, it's that God restores dignity quietly, in moments no one applauds." The bride's eyes filled with tears she couldn't hide. The crowd fell utterly still. A different kind of silence, the holy kind, filled the hall. When she finished, she didn't raise her glass to herself. She raised it upward, to new beginnings that start with God. The toast echoed through the room like a gentle storm. People hesitated before clapping, afraid to break the sacred hush. Then one by one, applause grew, not loud, but sincere. Nathan smiled, not at her bravery, but at her obedience. He knew what it cost to speak like that after being broken. Afterward, Grace stepped out into the garden to breathe. The cool air wrapped around her like mercy. The stars shimmered through a thin veil of clouds. She thought of the nights she cried, asking God for closure, and how, instead, He had given her continuation. She laughed softly through the tears. Behind her, the sound of footsteps. "Nathan, you handled that like someone walking on water," he said. Grace shook her head. "More like someone learning not to drown." Nathan chuckled. "Either way, you made the storm listen." He handed her a folded napkin, her lipstick stained faintly on it. He said, "I kept this when you stepped up there, as a reminder that courage leaves marks." She smiled, shy but grateful. "God uses even napkins for sermons," she joked. They stood side by side under the string lights. The laughter and music resumed inside, but the garden felt like another world. Nathan looked up at the night sky. "I haven't prayed in years," he admitted. Grace turned to him. "And now?" He said, "Now I feel like maybe someone's been praying for me all along." Grace didn't answer, but her eyes said, "Maybe I was meant to." A quiet connection bloomed, one that didn't need labels yet. As they started walking back in, the bride approached them. Her mascara smudged, but her smile was genuine. "Grace, thank you for your words," she said. "They healed something I didn't know was broken." Grace hugged her, surprised by her own peace. This was never about the past. It was about the future, all of ours. Nathan stepped aside, letting Grace fill the space between the women. God was doing invisible surgery on hearts. Inside, conversations shifted, lighter, kinder. People laughed differently now, as if something heavy had lifted. Grace saw her ex speaking with his father, reconciliation flickering in their eyes. Even the music seemed to carry forgiveness in its rhythm. She realized God wasn't fixing her moment, He was fixing the room. And maybe that was the real miracle. She whispered, "Thank you, Lord," under her breath. Later that night, as guests began to leave, Nathan walked her to her car. "You changed the atmosphere tonight," he said quietly. Grace smiled. "No, God did. I just said yes." He nodded. Then maybe saying yes is the greatest miracle of all. The headlights reflected in their eyes, both still searching, both still healing. "Do you ever wonder why our paths crossed?" Grace asked. "Only when I try to imagine what would have happened if they hadn't," he replied. Before she could respond, the bride's brother came running from the hall. "Wait, Nathan, right? The planner wants to thank you for fixing the cables earlier." Nathan hesitated, then nodded politely. Grace frowned. The way he reacted wasn't casual. Something about his expression carried old weight, a secret he wasn't ready to name. She felt a sudden curiosity mixed with something gentler. Maybe Nathan's story wasn't as simple as he seemed. On the drive home, Grace replayed the night in fragments. The whispers, the silence, the applause, the stars. She thought of Nathan's hands fixing chaos without credit, and how peace followed him like a shadow. She didn't know if she'd see him again, but she hoped. Her prayer that night wasn't for closure anymore. It was for continuation. In another part of the city, Nathan sat alone in a small apartment. He looked at the old photo on his nightstand, a church, a cross, a lost time. He whispered, "Maybe this was you reaching out again." For the first time in years, he knelt, not in guilt, but in gratitude. The words came quietly, "If you're still willing to use me, I'm here." Tears fell, slow and cleansing, and heaven listened again. The next morning, Grace woke with sunlight on her face and peace in her chest. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Thank you for letting me be part of your healing, N." She smiled, typing back, "It wasn't mine alone. God was healing both of us." Outside, the city looked different, not kinder, but redeemed. Because when grace enters a story, even broken invitations turn holy. And what God started at a wedding was only the beginning.
Nathan lingered by the curb, watching Grace drive away until her car disappeared into the turn. The night air carried the faint scent of rain, washing over him like release. For years, he had avoided places that reminded him of promises, weddings most of all. But somehow, tonight had been different, redemptive, restorative. He realized Grace hadn't invited him for comfort, she had invited him into healing. And healing, he thought, was a language he had forgotten how to speak until now. He whispered a quiet prayer, the first honest one in years. Inside her apartment, Grace hung her dress carefully, almost reverently. It wasn't about the fabric, it was about what it represented. No one at the wedding would ever know how hard she fought just to show up. But God knew. He had turned humiliation into testimony, pain into purpose. She looked in the mirror and for the first time didn't see a woman abandoned. She saw a woman restored. "Lord," she murmured, "thank you for the strength to stand where I once fell." Across town, Nathan opened his worn Bible, untouched for a long time. The pages smelled like dust and memory. He landed on a verse he hadn't sought. "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." He closed his eyes, feeling the words seep through cracks that had stayed hidden for too long. He realized Grace wasn't just someone he met by chance. She was a reminder that God still finds lost soldiers in coffee shops, and sometimes healing begins in borrowed moments. Grace sat on her couch, scrolling through messages from friends who saw pictures online. "You looked radiant. You showed them. You won," they said. But she smiled because the victory they saw wasn't the one she lived in. Her victory wasn't about proving worth. It was about releasing bitterness. She whispered, "God, you didn't give me revenge. You gave me peace. The kind of peace that makes forgiveness the loudest miracle of all." And for the first time in years, she slept without replaying the past. The next day, Nathan found himself walking toward the same cafe where it all began. He didn't plan to, his feet just knew the way. The barista smiled when she saw him. "You were with that woman yesterday, right? She paid for your coffee." Nathan froze, surprised. "She did?" The barista nodded, said something about Grace always giving first. Nathan exhaled slowly, a small smile breaking through.
Yeah, he murmured. That sounds like her. That afternoon, Grace drove past the old church again, curiosity tugging her heart. The bells were silent now, the decorations gone, but something sacred lingered. She parked and stepped out, the wind lifting her hair. Kneeling on the steps, she whispered, "Lord, thank you for letting me face what once broke me." As she stood, a folded piece of paper caught her eye, near the railing. A napkin with her lipstick stain. Nathan must have left it behind. On the back, 3 words were written, "God's not done."
Grace held the napkin between her fingers, reading the words again and again. God's not done. They echoed like a heartbeat. She didn't know she made it. Who exactly was Nathan, this man who appeared just when she was ready to give up? The question followed her all morning like a quiet hum. Something in his presence felt divine, orchestrated, as if heaven itself had scheduled the encounter. She tucked the napkin into her journal beside a verse she had underlined weeks ago. "Be still and know that I am God." Maybe stillness was what she needed now. Not answers, but faith. At the cafe that afternoon, she found herself glancing toward the window seat. It was empty, yet full of memory. The barista recognized her immediately. "You're the woman who paid for his coffee, right?" Grace smiled. "I guess I am." "Well," the barista said, lowering her voice, "he comes here every morning at the same time, always sits there." Grace looked at the clock, 9:42 a.m. Her heart raced. She wasn't sure if she wanted to see him or avoid him. She stayed anyway, ordering tea she wouldn't finish. Outside, the morning light filtered through the glass, turning everything golden. Each tick of the clock sounded louder than the last. Then, right on time, Nathan walked in, head slightly bowed, coat wrinkled, same calm air. He noticed her instantly, and his surprise melted into a smile that carried both warmth and hesitation. "You came back," he said softly. Grace nodded. "I wasn't sure if I should." They sat across from each other, words hesitant at first. "I found something you left." Grace pulled the napkin from her bag. Nathan's eyes softened, a quiet storm behind them. "I wrote that because I needed to believe it too." Grace studied him, noticing small details she'd missed before. The faint scar near his wrist, the tired kindness in his gaze. There was more story behind those eyes than he allowed anyone to see. And now, she was determined to understand it. Nathan looked out the window, avoiding her direct question. "There's a reason I don't go to weddings," he began. Grace listened, sensing the weight beneath the calm. "I used to build sound systems for big events, corporate galas, weddings, you name it. Until one day, one of them fell apart." He paused, his jaw tightening. "I was in charge. People got hurt. One man almost didn't make it." Grace's breath caught. "What happened?" Nathan's voice lowered to a whisper. "I walked away from everything. My company, my reputation, my faith. I couldn't stand the sound of my own name anymore." He leaned back, eyes distant, as if replaying every second of that night. "I thought God had fired me from grace," he said bitterly. "But yesterday, watching you walk into that wedding, standing where you once fell, it was like watching someone do what I was too afraid to do." Grace blinked back tears. Sometimes the broken recognize each other before they understand why. She whispered, "Maybe that's why God crossed our paths." Silence hung between them, but it wasn't empty. It was sacred. Nathan finally met her gaze, and for the first time there was no wall. "Do you believe God gives second chances to people who messed up everything?" he asked. Grace smiled gently. "I believe he gives purpose to people who thought they were beyond repair." Nathan exhaled, relief visible in his shoulders. "Then maybe this time I won't run." And Grace nodded, her heart echoing the same promise. They spent the next hour talking about everything and nothing: faith, coffee, music, quiet miracles. Grace told him how she'd found healing by serving others at the community shelter. Nathan listened, captivated, like someone starving for hope. "Do you ever feel God hides blessings inside ordinary people?" he asked. "All the time," Grace said with a soft laugh. "Sometimes he wraps them in humility so we won't mistake them for luck." Nathan smiled, that rare, honest kind of smile that only happens after tears. As the cafe began to fill, Nathan stood to leave. "I start a new job tomorrow," he said, surprising her. "Maintenance at a local community center." Grace blinked. "Wait, that's the same place I volunteer." They both froze, realizing the impossible alignment. A laugh slipped through the shock. "Of course," she said, shaking her head. Nathan grinned. "God really doesn't do coincidences, does he?" "Not when he's writing the story," Grace replied. That evening, Grace journaled everything: the napkin, the confession, the coincidence. Her handwriting trembled with awe. She wrote, "He's not just a stranger anymore. He's a chapter I didn't know God was writing." Her room glowed with sunset light, gold and quiet. She prayed, "Lord, if you're leading me into something new, let it be holy." And for the first time since her heartbreak, she felt excitement instead of fear. The unknown didn't scare her. It called her forward. Across town, Nathan stood in front of the community center. The building looked worn, but he saw potential, like God looking at him. He whispered, "If this is where you want me, I'll stay." Inside, the sound of children's laughter echoed through the halls. It reminded him of hope, raw, unpolished, alive. He placed his hand on the doorknob, taking a deep breath. Redemption, it seemed, had an address. The next morning, Grace walked into the center carrying boxes of donated clothes. When she saw Nathan sweeping the hallway, she couldn't help but smile. He looked up, startled, then grinned. "Guess we're co-workers now." "Guess I am," she replied. And in that moment, both felt something shift. Not romance, but recognition. The kind of recognition that happens when two healed souls meet in the work of grace. Heaven must have been smiling too. Throughout the day, they worked side by side, quietly, rhythmically. Grace noticed how Nathan treated every task like worship. He fixed broken chairs, replaced flickering bulbs, comforted a crying child. Each gesture was simple, yet holy. By lunchtime, the staff had already started whispering, "The new guy. He's different." Grace just nodded, hiding a knowing smile. Different wasn't the right word. Redeemed was. Later that week, the center planned a fundraiser dinner for the community. Grace was asked to coordinate. Nathan offered to handle the technical setup. When he opened the equipment room, he froze. It was filled with the same kind of cables and speakers from his old life. Grace noticed his hesitation and placed a hand on his arm. "Maybe this is your altar," she whispered, "fixing what once broke you." Nathan stood there, heart pounding. He slowly reached for the tangled cables, fingers steady this time. With every knot he untied, a memory released its grip. When the lights finally turned on, the room glowed perfectly, steady, pure. Grace clapped softly. "See? You just rewired redemption." Nathan laughed, half in disbelief. Maybe Grace was more technical than people thought. As the night for the fundraiser arrived, the center buzzed with music and laughter. Children ran around, volunteers served food, and warmth filled the air. Grace watched Nathan adjust the sound levels, his face peaceful. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was home. She whispered a prayer of gratitude, knowing God had done it again, turned strangers into vessels.
Morning light spilled across the community center like a quiet promise. Grace unlocked the front doors, whispering, "Lord, make this a house of peace." Volunteers trickled in with laughter, carrying boxes of canned goods. Flyers for a new after-school program fluttered on the bulletin board. Nathan ran a sound check for the kids' choir rehearsal, hands steady. Grace watched him and felt the fragile glow of recent miracles. Outside, clouds gathered slowly, like a parable forming in the sky. By 9, the calendar already hummed with appointments and needs. A city official was coming to evaluate funding for the center. A major donor had promised a visit, unannounced, sometime this week, and a shipment of food was delayed on the highway. Grace wrote a prayer in her planner, "Guard our peace, guide our steps." Nathan taped a note on the mixer, "Double-check cables, no surprises." Both sensed Grace working, quietly, but not without resistance. The first test arrived with the front door slam. A teen named Marco stormed in, jaw clenched, hoodie up. He'd been suspended from school and wanted to help or something. Grace met him with soft eyes and firm boundaries. "We can use your hands, and your story matters here." Nathan offered gloves and a task, sorting donated laptops. Marco clicked his tongue, but stayed, shadowed by a bruised pride. Inside the gym, the kids' choir practiced a simple hymn. A microphone crackled, then hissed, then went silent. Nathan crouched, tracing the fault like a detective of mercy. He muttered, a frayed patch, remembering worse nights and louder rooms. He rewired, tested, breathed. Sound returned clearer than before. The children grinned and kept singing, innocence tuning the hall. Grace exhaled. Small fixes are sacraments in places like this. Near noon, a woman burst in with rain on her lashes. Her name was Elena. Her rent notice shook in her hand. "I heard you help people who don't want to give up," she blurted. Grace sat her down, poured tea that smelled of steadiness. "We'll make a plan. You're not alone in this," she said. Nathan quietly printed resources, circling numbers with patient ink. Hope took a chair at their table and stayed. At the same hour, criticism arrived, dressed as concern. A neighbor paced the lobby, unimpressed with the noise and traffic. "These kids leave trash. Your music is too loud," he complained. Grace apologized, promising cleanup crews and earlier quiet hours. The man left unconvinced, threats of petitions under his breath. Nathan squeezed Grace's shoulder. "We'll love them by cleaning anyway." She nodded, resisting the urge to defend instead of serve. Mid-afternoon, a storm muscled through the city. Thunder rolled like drums from a different ceremony. The power blinked once, then twice, then was gone. Darkness pooled in hallways. The children startled, voices small. Grace held up her phone flashlight. "We're okay. Stay close." Nathan sprinted to the breaker room, faith pacing his breath. "Lord, give me light to give them light." He opened the panel and found a corroded main. Water had seeped in from a roof leak, rusting faith to orange. The repair required courage and careful hands in the dim. Nathan improvised insulation with rubber mats and a borrowed tarp. Marco appeared, unasked, holding another flashlight steady. "Tell me what to do," the teen said, eyes clearer. Together they steadied fear's trembling wires with practical grace. Minutes dragged, rain drilled the roof like anxious fingers. Kids prayed in the gym, a chorus of small amens. Grace moved from group to group, anchoring with presence. A volunteer texted the city official to delay the visit. The official replied, "Already parked outside, coming in." Grace's stomach dipped, but her voice stayed warm. "Okay, Lord, let your report write itself." The doors opened to wet umbrellas and official badges. Flashlights cut silver tunnels through the dark lobby. The official frowned at the powerless lights and dripping ceiling. "This isn't ideal," he said, flipping through forms. Grace answered with honesty instead of excuses. "We're fixing it right now, and we're not stopping the care." Children sang from the gym, thunder humming the harmony. Back at the panel, Nathan tightened the final clamp. He prayed with his hands, firm, precise, surrendered. "Ready," he told Marco, who nodded like a new apprentice. They flipped the breaker, the building held its breath. Light spilled back like sunrise through every corridor. Cheering erupted, unscripted and holy. Nathan laughed, a sound he'd forgotten belonged to him. The official walked the hall with a changed expression. He paused at the tutoring room lit with renewed brightness. A volunteer taught fractions with crackers and patience. He paused at the pantry where Elena folded boxes gratefully. He paused at the gym where the choir restarted their hymn. "He looks like resilience is your backup generator," he said. Grace smiled. "We run on prayer and neighborhood love." After the tour, the official closed his folder. "There are compliance issues, roof, wiring, and exterior signage. Normally, I'd schedule a re-inspection in 30 days. He looked around at faces shining with post-storm light. "But I'm issuing a provisional clearance for 6 months. Fix the list, keep doing this." He gestured at everything. Paper met compassion. Policy bowed to purpose. That evening, a pizza truck arrived, unannounced. The neighbor who complained stepped out, sheepish. "I was harsh," he admitted. "Heard the singing through the storm." He handed Nathan a toolbox and Grace a stack of pizzas. "Consider this a neighborly truce and a Saturday cleanup crew." Grace laughed, tears threading the edges of relief. Reconciliation smelled like mozzarella and rain. When the kids finally went home, quiet settled like a blanket. Grace and Nathan stacked chairs in a calm rhythm. "Thank you for the breaker miracle," she said. He shook his head. "You kept the people steady. I just found the switch." She glanced at Marco, sweeping with surprising pride. "Maybe you found more than one," she whispered. Nathan felt the truth land and stay. Later, Marco hovered by the door, pretending to text. He shoved his hands into pockets heavy with unspoken things. "My mom said to say thanks, and I can help on weekends with cables or stuff." Nathan nodded like this was normal, not sacred. "Training starts Saturday." He handed him a lanyard. Marco slipped it on like armor that finally fit. As rain softened to mist, Elena returned with a small envelope. "First step," she smiled. "I sold some jewelry. It'll cover part of rent." Grace celebrated little victories like they were coronations. "We'll meet tomorrow. Budget, resources, next steps." She hugged her, whispering, "I didn't know hope could be a place." Nathan watched, grateful that Mercy keeps office hours here. The center's lights glowed like a lighthouse for inland storms. They met in the equipment room to list repairs. Nathan traced the roof leak with a contractor's eye. "We'll need tar, flashing, and a weekend with no rain." Grace scribbled costs, already praying provision into numbers. She paused, then looked at him differently, warmer, deeper, surer. "Thank you for staying," she said. "Not just today, here." He understood. Staying was the miracle he'd been denied before. Night came, silver and forgiving, draped over the parking lot. Grace locked the doors, then lingered with Nathan under the awning. "I used to think healing was a moment. Now I think it's a rhythm. Service, surrender, repeat." He smiled, and some well-timed breaker flips. They both laughed, grateful for jokes that didn't hide pain. Thunder rumbled far away, now more lullaby than threat. Before they parted, they joined the empty gym's quiet. The mic stood where small voices had lifted big prayers. Grace bowed her head, Nathan closed his eyes. "Lord, heal roofs, wires, and harder things," she prayed softly. "Teach us to mend what pride once broke," he added. Their amens braided together like cords that don't snap. Peace signed the room like a final note. On her drive home, Grace replayed the day's mercies. Provision woven through crisis, neighbors through complaints. A teen choosing help, a mother choosing hope, a building choosing light after the storm. She whispered, "God, keep writing this way, slow, steady, sure." The city lights winked like confirmation on the windshield. Tomorrow felt less like risk and more like calling. Across town, Nathan set tools on his kitchen counter. He stared at the napkin pinned by a magnet. "God's not done." He touched it lightly, as if checking a pulse. "Use me again tomorrow," he prayed, voice steady. "Use me until fixing is the story, not the penance." He turned off the light, leaving the kitchen gently silver, and sleep came without the old alarms.
But stories that begin to heal often attract new battles. As midnight deepened, an email arrived in Grace's inbox. Subject: urgent. Former vendor files complaint regarding Nathan Hale. Her heart jolted, breath snagging between faith and fear. She clicked. Allegations from the old accident, legal language revived. A phrase burned: unfit for technical oversight in public facilities. Grace folded her hands and whispered, "Lord, show me the next right step." The next morning dawned gray, pressing against the windows like worry. Grace reread the email, each line a blade she didn't expect. Her heart raced, hands trembling over the keyboard. It wasn't just words, it was Nathan's past reaching through the screen. She whispered, "Lord, not now, not when he's rebuilding." The complaint accused him of negligence from the old accident years ago, and now someone wanted to open the wound. She printed the notice, pacing the office in slow circles. How could she tell him? How could she protect the center? Grace had seen redemption in action, but donors, officials, and city auditors, they didn't always see miracles. They saw risk. A voice whispered doubt. You should have checked his past. But another voice, gentler, said, you saw his heart. And that was still true. When Nathan arrived, coffee in hand, his smile faltered instantly. He read it in her eyes before seeing the paper. What happened? He asked, setting the cup aside. Grace hesitated, then handed him the printout. His eyes scanned the page, color draining from his face. It's them, he whispered. The old clients. They're still trying to clear liability. Grace said nothing, letting silence hold what words couldn't fix. Nathan sank into the nearest chair, jaw tight, shoulders collapsing inward. I thought that chapter was closed, he muttered. Grace knelt beside him, voice steady. Maybe it's being rewritten. He shook his head. They'll call reporters. They'll ruin what we've built. Grace placed a hand on his wrist. You didn't build this alone. God did. He looked at her, guilt thick in his throat. But what if my past tears it down? The day stretched heavy, each hour measured in anxious prayers. By afternoon, word began to ripple through volunteers. Whispers rose like static, half-truths, assumptions, fears. Grace gathered everyone in the gym, voice trembling but clear. None of us are here because we're flawless. We're here because Grace gave us work. She didn't mention names, only principles. And somehow, peace began to hush the murmurs. After the meeting, Nathan stayed behind, sweeping the floor. Grace approached quietly. You don't have to hide, she said. He sighed. I'm not hiding. I'm just cleaning the place I might lose. Grace frowned. That's fear talking. You taught Marco to face storms, remember? He smiled faintly. I did, didn't I? Then let's face this one too, she said firmly. And together, they prayed in the echo of mops and faith. 2 days later, the city official returned unexpectedly. Grace met him at the door, pulse quickening. I've heard about the complaint, he said flatly. Grace braced for reprimand, but he surprised her. I checked the record. No criminal charges, only civil proceedings, all resolved. Grace blinked. Then why bring it up again? He said politics, and someone who doesn't like seeing hope succeed. When he left, Grace felt relief, tangled with purpose. If opposition was rising, maybe that meant something sacred was growing. She walked to the workshop, where Nathan repaired chairs for the daycare. He didn't notice her right away. He was humming softly, focus steady. His calm struck her. The man accused of breaking things was now fixing everything. She smiled, whispering, "That's what grace looks like." And she silently vowed to stand by him. That evening, a local journalist emailed for a comment. Grace sat at her desk, rereading the message. They wanted a quote about the controversy surrounding the new volunteer technician. Nathan offered to withdraw from the center entirely, but Grace shook her head, fierce and gentle. "You won't leave a battlefield God told you to claim." Nathan's eyes glistened, not pride, but gratitude. The next day, Grace invited the journalist to visit in person. Instead of press statements, she offered transparency. "Come see what he's doing now," she said. When the reporter arrived, she found Nathan teaching Marco to rewire safely. Children played nearby. Elena sorted pantry donations. It wasn't a scandal. It was resurrection. And resurrection speaks louder than reputation. Later that week, the article appeared online. Headline: "Man once blamed for failure now powers a community back to life." Grace read it aloud to the volunteers, voice breaking with joy. Photos showed Nathan smiling shyly beside the repaired soundboard. The world had seen his fall. Now it saw his rebuilding. Marco shouted, "That's my mentor!" The room erupted in applause that felt like worship. Still, not everyone celebrated. One donor suspended contributions, pending review. Supplies ran low, bills began stacking on Grace's desk. Faith had fixed hearts, but funds still had to fix roofs. Nathan noticed her exhaustion and stayed late every night. He fixed what he could, prayed over what he couldn't. Both learned that miracles are often paid in persistence. One night, after locking up, they sat under the awning again. Rain whispered over the parking lot like chapter titles in water. Grace broke the silence. "Do you ever wish you'd stayed invisible?" He chuckled, low and honest. "Sometimes, but invisibility is safer, not holier." She smiled. "And holiness is messy." "Always," he said. Their laughter rose into the rain like a hymn without melody. Inside, the lights flickered again. A faulty wire, nothing serious. Nathan stood, grabbed his tools automatically. But Grace stopped him, hand on his arm. "It's okay. Sit." He hesitated, then obeyed, for once letting her fix the silence. "You don't always have to repair things," she whispered. He looked at her, tired, human, forgiven. "Maybe this time, God's repairing me," he said. The following morning, the suspended donor called back. "I read the article," she said. "Keep the funding. People like him prove redemption's real." Grace covered her mouth, tears springing fast. Nathan smiled, pretending to keep working, but she caught him whispering, "Thank you, Lord." The center hummed again, alive with gratitude. They both knew storms don't stop grace, they reveal it. As the week ended, the community gathered for Sunday dinner. Elena served soup. Marco read a verse aloud. "He makes all things new." Grace looked around and saw more than faces. She saw testimonies. Nathan watched from the back, quiet pride shining through humility. He no longer feared his name in print. His story was God's now. Grace met his eyes, both knowing this wasn't the end. It was the next beginning written in mercy's ink. That night, Grace sat by her window, journal open. She wrote, "When the past knocks, answer with grace, not guilt." Outside, thunder rolled softly, distant, defeated. The napkin still sat folded beside her lamp. God's not done. She smiled, closing her notebook. "No," she whispered, "he never is." And somewhere across the city, Nathan prayed the same words. 2 prayers, 1 author, writing the rest of the story.
It began with the smell of smoke, faint, almost questioning. Grace was sorting files in the office when the alarm blared. Children screamed, volunteers ran, chaos unfolded like lightning. She rushed into the hallway, heart pounding, calling for Nathan. Thick haze crawled from the kitchen where an outlet sparked a flame. Panic spread faster than reason. "Everyone out, now!" she shouted, voice steady despite the quake inside her. Nathan sprinted from the gym, extinguishers in both hands. He aimed at the smoke, remembering training, ignoring fear. Grease and sparks hissed like voices from the past, accusations, failure. He refused to hear them. Not again. "Grace, clear the kids," he yelled. "I've got this side." She trusted him without hesitation. Faith doesn't erase fear, it outruns it. Within minutes, the fire licked up curtains near the pantry door. Nathan kicked them down, foam coating the walls like mercy. Elena and Marco helped carry boxes outside, coughing through the smoke. Rain began to fall, not heavy, but enough to feel divine. Grace guided children beneath umbrellas borrowed from strangers. The community came running, forming a bucket line instinctively. No one waited for orders, they just acted in love. When the firefighters arrived, most of the flames were already out. Nathan stood drenched, exhausted, hands black with soot. A fire captain approached, glancing at the charred outlet. "Short circuit. You're lucky it was caught early," he said. Grace exhaled, weak-kneed, but grateful beyond words. She looked at Nathan, trembling, coughing, alive. "God still writes quick endings," she whispered. They watched the crew pack up equipment, daylight breaking through steam. The building stood, scarred but intact. Only the kitchen wall was lost, the heart of their meals and gatherings. For a moment, grief tried to sneak in wearing disappointment's coat. Grace refused to let it stay. "If the kitchen burned," she said softly, "then we'll feed people outside." Nathan nodded, eyes red but fierce. News spread fast. By noon, neighbors arrived with casseroles, tents, tools. The burned wall became a rallying ground instead of ruins. Marco organized cleanup like a soldier of redemption. Elena coordinated meals, laughing through ash-smudged cheeks. Grace watched the crowd work and thought, this is church. Not pews or sermons, but people rebuilding together. Nathan agreed silently with every hammer strike of hope. Still, the fire reawakened Nathan's oldest ghost. He couldn't stop seeing the smoke, the panic, the memories of the accident. At dusk, he walked behind the building and sank to his knees. His hands shook uncontrollably, tears cutting clean lines through ash. "Lord, I tried, but it happened again," he whispered, a voice cracking. He waited for silence, but Grace answered through footsteps. Grace, the person, not the concept, stood behind him. She didn't speak first, she just placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know that look," she said softly. "It's the same one I had after being left at the altar." He looked up, stunned. "You're comparing heartbreak to fire?" She smiled sadly. "Both leave ashes, but God can plant gardens in either." Nathan let out a broken laugh. "You always find the metaphors." "Not metaphors," she corrected gently. "Memories that became sermons." And for the first time since the fire, he breathed again. Later that night, after volunteers went home, they sat near the ruin. The sky was streaked with moonlight and leftover smoke.
Grace traced the edge of the burned wall. "It's strange," she said. "It hurts, but it doesn't feel like loss." Nathan nodded, "Because this time the ending isn't yours to fix." He reached for a piece of charred wood and turned it in his hand. "It's just proof we survived." The next morning, the insurance adjuster arrived. His clipboard and cold tone carried bureaucracy's chill. Grace prayed under her breath before answering questions. Nathan stood nearby, silent but solid. When the man left, he said, "Expect a long process, months maybe." Grace smiled politely. "We'll keep feeding people anyway." Faith doesn't wait for permission. By midweek, donations trickled in. Not much, but enough to matter. Kids brought jars of coins, elders brought extra bread. Marco launched an online campaign, Rebuild Hope's Kitchen. Within hours, messages poured in from across the city. People remembered the article about Nathan, the story of grace. Now they wanted to be part of the sequel. The internet became a congregation without walls. Through it all, Nathan worked quietly. He replaced wires, patched drywall, rebuilt shelves. Every repair felt like penance, turned into praise. Grace watched him from across the hall, heart heavy with admiration. She knew he was fighting demons no one else could see. And she prayed, "God, don't let him carry what you already redeemed." Outside, the rain finally stopped. One evening, she found him in the half-lit kitchen. He was staring at the scorched outlet again, lost in thought. She approached gently. "You keep looking at it like it owes you something." He exhaled. "It's the same model from the accident, the one that failed." Grace stepped closer. "Then maybe it's time to forgive the outlet." He blinked, caught between disbelief and laughter. And then he actually smiled. They stood there for a long time, quiet laughter dissolving tension. He finally said, "You know, I used to think I was cursed around electricity." Grace shook her head. "You're not," and for the first time in years, he believed it might stay lit. The new outdoor kitchen opened 2 weeks later. Strings of lights hung between trees, powered by freshly checked outlets. Children served plates beside parents, music playing softly from Nathan's repaired system. The mayor came, reporters came, even the fire captain stopped by. "Looks better than before," he admitted. Grace smiled. God rebuilt stronger. And everyone clapped because they knew it was true. When the crowd thinned, Marco stood at the edge of the lot. The sunset painted his face in gold and peace. Grace joined him, holding 2 cups of lemonade. "No alarms today," she said lightly. "None," he agreed. "Only gratitude." They watched volunteers laughing under lanterns. No smoke, no fear. Redemption glowed brighter than any flame. As evening settled, Marco found them with a grin. "The fundraiser passed its goal," he said, waving his phone. Grace gasped, covering her mouth. "Already?" Nathan shook his head in disbelief. "I guess the fire multiplied faith." Elena chimed in from the tables. "Miracles have interest rates too." Everyone laughed, relief pouring out as joy. The night turned holy again, this time on purpose. Before leaving, Grace knelt near the rebuilt wall. She pressed her hand against the new brick and whispered thanks. "Lord, thank you for proving light doesn't fear smoke." Behind her, Nathan watched, quiet, reverent, changed. He whispered his own prayer, "Let me protect this flame, not fear it." Grace turned and smiled at him through tears. "Looks like we're both fireproof now," she said softly. Later, alone in his apartment, Nathan opened his Bible again. A verse he never noticed before seemed to glow. "When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned." He underlined it slowly, reverently. Outside, thunder rolled in distant approval. He thought of grace, of the children, of second chances. He whispered, "Thank you for trusting me with light." And heaven, as always, listened closely. Across the city, Grace journaled under candlelight. She wrote, "The fire didn't come to destroy. It came to reveal what could endure. She tucked the napkin inside the page, its edges now faint with time. Still readable, God's not done. She smiled through tears, closing the book with quiet awe. Neither are we, she whispered. And in that moment, redemption kept burning, gentle, endless, alive.
Morning arrived quiet, too quiet for a place usually filled with voices. Grace poured coffee in the break room, her thoughts looping like prayers. The community center felt lighter these days, repaired, renewed, alive. But peace can be deceptive. Sometimes it's the calm before revelation. Nathan hadn't shown up yet, which was unusual. His tools sat neatly on the bench, everything in order but him. Grace's heart tugged with an unease she couldn't name. When he finally walked in, something was different. He carried an envelope, sealed and formal, with a corporate logo on it. Grace noticed the tremor in his hand before he spoke. "I got an offer," he said softly, "a project manager position in Denver." Her heart stumbled, but her smile didn't. "That's good news." He nodded, avoiding her eyes. "It's more than I imagined. Double the salary, housing, benefits." Grace whispered, "And distance." He sat, resting the envelope on the table like a confession. "I didn't ask for this. They reached out after reading the article." Grace tried to sound steady. "So they saw redemption and wanted it for their brand?" Nathan chuckled sadly. "Maybe. Or maybe God's giving me another chance to provide." Her fingers tightened around her mug. Another chance or another test? He looked up, the question hanging between them like sacred tension. Neither dared answer too quickly. By noon, the news spread quietly through volunteers. Some celebrated, others worried about losing their anchor. Marco, now the tech apprentice, frowned. "He can't just leave. We're a team." Grace hushed him gently. Sometimes teams grow by letting go, but she didn't believe her own words. She watched Nathan pack a few tools into his truck. It felt like déjà vu, watching Faith walk away again. That night, the city lights looked sharper, almost cruel. Grace walked the empty halls of the center, touching door frames like memories. She paused at the kitchen wall, now smooth and rebuilt. "Lord," she whispered, "you gave him back to light. Don't let the world dim it again." Her prayer trembled between surrender and fear. Some promises are heavy because they're alive, and living promises sometimes ache. Meanwhile, Nathan sat at home, the offer letter unfolded on his table. The words looked like provision, but felt like distraction. He remembered the day Grace handed him gloves instead of pity. He remembered Marco's first smile, Aleda's laughter, the children's songs. And yet the promise of stability whispered louder than memory. He wanted to be faithful, but faithfulness isn't always staying still. It's knowing where God's hand is moving next. Sleep evaded them both. Grace opened her Bible, landing on Ruth 1:16, "Where you go, I will go." She smiled through tears, "But this time, I can't follow." Nathan sat awake, staring at his tools. He whispered, "Lord, is this you, or just the noise of opportunity?" The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was weighty. Sometimes heaven answers by waiting for your decision. The next morning, he found Grace by the garden outside the center. The air smelled like rain and endings. "I need your honesty. Do you think I should go?" Grace looked at him long before speaking. "I think God trusts you enough to choose right." Her voice cracked on the word trust. Nathan exhaled. "Then I'll pray until peace picks a side." Days passed like slow thunder. He finished every pending task as if preparing an altar. The roof leak, sealed. The light panels, replaced. The youth computers, rewired. Each fix felt like closure,
but Grace saw it as goodbye. Every time he smiled, it carried an unspoken thank you. Every time she prayed, it carried an unspoken don't go. Love, when sanctified, hurts differently, quietly, holy. On Friday, the board gathered to celebrate the rebuilt center. The mayor gave a short speech. Applause filled the hall. Nathan stood beside Grace, outwardly composed, inwardly unraveling. When it was his turn to speak, he hesitated. Sometimes second chances come disguised as small jobs, and sometimes they turn into sacred callings. The crowd clapped, not knowing he was saying farewell. After everyone left, Grace lingered near the stage lights. Nathan approached, hands in pockets, expression unreadable. "They want me to start next week," he said. Grace nodded slowly, feeling her throat tighten. "Then you should start by telling them you'll pray one more night." He smiled faintly. "You really believe prayer changes God's mind?" "No," she whispered. "It changes ours." That night, Nathan drove to the old church where they'd first met. The pews were empty, but the altar still smelled of wax and memory. He knelt, not asking for signs this time, just listening. "Lord, I promise to be a light, not just to have one." A breeze moved through the aisle, gentle, decisive. He knew the answer before his heart caught up. He didn't need Denver, he needed purpose. At sunrise, Grace arrived at the center early as always. When she unlocked the door, a letter fell from the frame. Her name written in Nathan's handwriting, steady, familiar. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. "Grace, I almost left, but then I realized leaving would mean breaking the promise that rebuilt me. This place isn't just a job, it's redemption, and redemption is never part-time. N." Tears blurred the ink until it looked like art. She whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for choosing for him." An hour later, Nathan walked in, coffee and smile intact. Grace didn't say a word, she just pointed at the letter. He laughed softly. "So you found my resignation from leaving." She wiped her eyes. "You're terrible at dramatic exits." He grinned. "Good, I'm better at staying." And for the first time, staying felt like calling, not compromise. Heaven must have applauded quietly. By afternoon, the center buzzed again with life. The children rehearsed new songs. Marco hung lights for an event. Elena brought homemade bread to celebrate answered prayers. Nathan fixed the last outlet in the corner, his own symbol of closure. Grace stood beside him, a mix of peace and wonder in her chest. She whispered, "You kept your promise." He replied, "No, we kept his." As dusk fell, they sat outside watching the sunset paint the sky. Grace turned to him. "You could have chosen the easy road." Nathan smiled. "I tried that once. It didn't have you or him." Her cheeks flushed, but her heart steadied in faith. They didn't need declarations, only presence. Between them, silence wasn't absence anymore. It was worship, and redemption, once fragile, now felt permanent. That night, the city slept under a new kind of peace. In her journal, Grace wrote, "Promises weigh heavy, but they anchor us to heaven." She tucked Nathan's letter beside the napkin, two relics of grace. Outside, the center lights glowed like embers that refused to die. Across town, Nathan prayed the same prayer again. "Keep me here until you say move." The words drifted heavenward, unhurried, sure. And God, smiling, whispered back, "I already have."
Spring unfolded gently over the city, soft and golden. The community center thrived again, laughter spilling through every hallway. The garden Grace planted months ago was now a sea of color. Tomatoes, lilies, and wildflowers mingled like stories reborn. Nathan stood at the gate early that morning, coffee steaming in his hand. He watched children run past, their joy a kind of worship. "Looks like the seeds took root," Grace said behind him. He turned, smiling. "You were right. The soil just needed a little patience." She handed him a clipboard full of schedules, smiling back. Between them, comfort had replaced uncertainty. Presence had replaced fear. They didn't talk about Denver anymore, or what might have been. Their eyes carried a silent understanding. They had chosen grace, literally. The work, the faith, the friendship, all woven into something sacred. God had turned survival into calling, and calling into love. As the day began, the center buzzed with new beginnings. A donor had funded an expansion for an art therapy wing. Marco was now leading the youth tech team full-time. Elena had started cooking classes for single mothers. Grace oversaw it all, her clipboard and her prayers equally organized. Nathan's repairs had become mentorship lessons for young men. Each brick of the building now carried a story of redemption. But heaven rarely leaves a story without one last test. That afternoon, a storm rolled in, sudden, heavy, uninvited. Lightning cracked over the city as thunder rattled the windows. The power flickered once, twice, and then died again. Grace froze, memory flashing of flames and alarms. Nathan grabbed his flashlight, calm as rain. "This time," he said, "we already know how to stand." They moved through the halls together, steady and sure. Children gathered in the gym, volunteers guiding with lanterns. Rain drummed like rhythm against the roof, almost musical. Nathan checked the breakers, his voice echoing confidence now. "No sparks, no leaks, no fear," he murmured. Grace smiled. "Redemption even rewires storms." When the lights came back, cheers rose louder than thunder. Afterward, they sat on the floor of the quiet gym. The kids had gone home, leaving echoes of laughter behind. Nathan leaned back against the wall, closing his eyes. "I used to think fixing things was the goal. Now I think God just wanted me to learn why they break." Grace tilted her head. "And why do they?" He opened his eyes, smiling. "So we'll learn how to build with love." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt like peace wearing skin. She reached for his hand, not as a question, but as gratitude. Their fingers met halfway, quiet and sure. "Do you think we were meant to meet that day?" He squeezed gently. "No doubt. Some accidents are appointments." Her eyes filled with tears, the good kind. Weeks passed, turning storms into clear skies. The grand reopening of the center drew a full crowd. Banners fluttered, music swelled, and joy poured through the walls. Nathan adjusted microphones, the same ones that once failed him. Grace stepped onto the stage to speak, voice steady, eyes bright. "This building was once smoke and ash. Now it's light and laughter, because love rebuilt it." Applause rolled through the crowd like hallelujahs. Nathan stood behind her, humbled, proud, undone. She looked back at him mid-speech, just a glance, but full of meaning. He nodded silently, finishing her sentence with his eyes. "We rebuilt too." The children sang a hymn that seemed written for the moment. "Where love lives, light stays." After the event, they stayed behind, cleaning confetti from the floor. Grace laughed as paper hearts clung to her shoes. Nathan bent to pick one up, brushing glitter from her wrist. "Careful," she teased. "That's my sparkle budget for the year." He laughed soft and full, the kind of laugh that heals. In that simple joy, all the weight of past chapters dissolved. God's promises had outlasted every test. That evening, the sun dipped low, painting gold across wet pavement. They sat outside again, the same spot, the same rhythm. But this time, no rain, no fear, just calm.
Grace turned to him. "You know, I used to pray for closure." Nathan smiled. "And what did you get instead?" "Continuation, the kind that never ends." He looked at her and for once said nothing at all. Silence held them, holy and unhurried. She leaned her head on his shoulder, eyes on the fading light. The sky stretched wide like a promise fulfilled. "Thank you," Nathan murmured, not sure if to her or to God. Grace smiled. Both work. And for the first time, neither felt like survivors anymore. They felt like stewards of something sacred. Days later, they held a small evening service under the garden lights. Families gathered with candles. Children sang softly in the dusk. Grace spoke a short prayer for all the things we lost that made room for what God built. Nathan followed with a verse. "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." The words hung in the air like benediction. Then, one by one, everyone lifted their candles high. The garden shimmered like heaven visiting earth. After the crowd dispersed, Grace found Nathan by the gate. He was looking at the stars, hands in his pockets. "You ever wonder what comes next?" she asked quietly. "I stopped asking. God writes better sequels." She laughed through the lump in her throat. "That's faith talking." "No," he said softly. "That's gratitude learning how to breathe." And the night felt endless because it was full. When Grace got home, she placed her old journal on the table. The napkin and letter rested between its pages, fragile but unforgotten. She traced the faded ink, "God's not done with me yet." Then she wrote beneath it, "He never is." Her tears fell onto the page, forming tiny constellations of gratitude. She whispered, "Thank you for turning loss into light." And the room glowed with peace that words couldn't describe. Nathan sat in his workshop finalizing blueprints for new classrooms. He paused, listening to the soft hum of the repaired lights above him. Every bulb, every wire, every hum felt alive with purpose. He whispered, "If this is forever, it's enough." Outside, the wind shifted through trees like whispered prayer. He closed his eyes, knowing Grace wasn't beside him, she was within him. And heaven smiled, satisfied with its own ending. Months later, the city unveiled a plaque at the entrance. It read, "The Hope Center, built by hands redeemed." Grace and Nathan stood together, holding the ribbon-cutting scissors. When the crowd counted down, they cut it in one motion, laughter spilling after. Flashbulbs popped, children cheered, and the future opened wide. Grace turned to him. "So, Mr. Hale, what now?" He grinned. "Now we keep building what doesn't burn." That night, before leaving, they walked through the empty halls once more. Every echo felt like gratitude whispering back to them. At the exit, Nathan held the door, eyes reflecting soft light from the lamps. "Grace," he said, voice quiet, "thank you for seeing what I couldn't." She smiled, tears catching gold from the lamps. "And thank you for staying." Outside, the street glowed like a river of answered prayers. They stepped into it, together, fearless, forever new. Before you go, take a deep breath and remember this. When God writes your story, even the ashes become beauty. Comment below, "God's not done with me yet," and let's fill this section with faith. Subscribe to Redeemed Hearts and turn on notifications. Your next miracle might be one video away.